It is 6 p.m. here in Cairo. Time for the news bulletin, and we will be starting straight away with the main headlines. President Fattah al-Sisi returned home after participating in an informal visit to Saudi Arabia on the Palestinian cause. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed ibn Salman had invited the leaders of Egypt, Jordan, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Bahrain and Qatar for the meeting in Riyadh over the post-war Gaza reconstruction. The meeting discussed the emergency Arab summit that Egypt will host on March the 4th for developments in the Israel-Palestinian conflict. As for the joint Arab action and the decisions issued regarding it, this will be on the agenda of the upcoming emergency Arab summit. Arab states have pledged to work on the post-war plan for the Gaza Strip's reconstruction. Ahead of the visit to Saudi Arabia, President Fattah al-Sisi had wrapped up the official visit to Spain. At the end of the visit, the two countries issued a joint communique which showed both sides' commitment to enhancing regional partnership, political dialogue, and cooperation relevant to the Eurasian ties. The communique asserted the Palestinians' right to stay in their homeland, reiterated rejection of any attempted evacuation, and stressed that the ceasefire in Gaza be permanent in order to allow the distribution of the largest amount of aid to its people. The communique affirmed that the Palestinian Authority is the one responsible for regaining stability in the Palestinian territories and called on the international donors to strongly engage in the upcoming Gaza Reconstruction Conference due to be hosted by Egypt next month. The communique pressed for the two-state solution and supporting the UN Palestinian Refugee Agency being irreplaceable. In the communique, Spain hailed the Egyptian mediation efforts for brokering a ceasefire deal in Gaza. Hamas said it was investigating a possible error in identifying the human remains handed to Israel under the ceasefire deal as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu threatened retaliation for failing to release the body of hostage Sheri Bibas. Hamas was due to hand over the bodies of Sheri Bibas and her two sons Kifer and Ariel under the ceasefire deal that has halted fighting in Gaza since last month. Meanwhile, the Israeli occupation authority said that they will free 602 inmates from jails on Saturday as part of the hostage prisoner swap with Hamas under an ongoing Gaza ceasefire deal. According to the Palestinian Prisoners Club advocacy group, among those released, 445 are individuals from Gaza who were arrested after the October 7th war, 60 are serving long sentences, 50 are serving life sentences, and 47 were rearrested after the 2011 prisoner exchange. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered an intensive operation in the occupied West Bank after 3 buses exploded in central Israel without causing any reported injuries. 3 devices detonated on buses in the city of Bat Yam on Thursday evening, and 2 others were being defused. As the Israeli occupation escalates the operations in the northern West Bank, Palestinian civilians are increasingly trapped in the crossfire. Thousands of people have evacuated in recent days from 2 urban refugee camps in scenes unseen in the territory in decades. The European Union will suspend the sanctions on the Syrian banking, energy and transport sectors in a bid to help the country's reconstruction. The Syrian new leaders have been clamoring for the West to ease the sanctions on the country imposed to target Bashar al-Assad's regime during the civil war. But Europe and other powers have been reluctant to move before clear signs from the new-led rulers in Damascus that they are serious on having an inclusive transition. Diplomats said that the sanctions could be reimposed if the Syrian new leaders break the promises to respect the rights of minorities and move towards democracy. The Israeli occupation forces said that it struck crossings on the Lebanon-Syria border, claiming that it is used by Hezbollah, with the Syria War Monitor reporting an unspecified number of people wounded in the attack. The statement added that these activities constitute the blatant violation of the ceasefire understandings between Israel and Lebanon. A fragile ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah has been in place since November 27th, after more than a year of hostilities, including 2 months of all-out war. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said that the overnight strikes put an illegal crossing near the Lebanese frontier town of Wadi Khalid, which borders the Syrian Homs province, out of service and wounded a number of civilians. Ukraine's Air Force shot down 87 drones, with 70 more probably lost to the electronic countermeasures, as it responded to the overnight attack in which Russia launched 160 drones and 2 missiles. Russian forces used 2 ballistic missiles to attack the Ukrainian southern region of Odessa. It said it captured 2 more East Ukrainian villages in the Donetsk region, edging closer to the central Dnipropetrovsk region. The Russian Defense Ministry said it took the village of Nadijivka, some 10 kilometers east of the regional border between the Donetsk and Dnipropetrovsk regions. It also claimed Novosilica, further south, another village close to the neighboring region. French President Emmanuel Macron said that he intends to tell Donald Trump that it is in the joint interest of the Americans and Europeans not to be weak in the face of the Russian President Vladimir Putin amid U.S.-led negotiations to end the almost 3-year war in Ukraine. The White House said that Macron is to travel to Washington to meet with Trump on Monday. Australia expressed concern to China over the short notice given by the Chinese Navy that it would hold the live fire exercise in the international waters between Australia and New Zealand, forcing the airlines to divert the flights. Defense Minister Richard Marles said that the airlines, including Qantas, Emirates and Air New Zealand, modified flight paths between Australia and New Zealand after China broadcast the message that its People's Liberation Army Navy would hold live fire exercises off the New South Wales coast in international waters, a rare event. A People's Liberation Army Navy frigate, cruiser and replenishment vessel entered the Australian maritime approaches last week and travelled down the Australian east coast this week, monitored by the navies and the air forces of Australia and New Zealand. And snowy roads led to hundreds of crashes throughout Virginia and North Carolina, including a series of crashes on an interstate highway involving more than 50 vehicles. The details follow.
Snowy roads led to hundreds of crashes throughout Virginia and North Carolina, including a series of crashes on an interstate highway involving more than 50 vehicles. Officials continue to ask people to avoid travel on Thursday to allow crews to work on the roads. The North Carolina State Highway Patrol says it responded to nearly 1,200 collisions statewide. Virginia State Police reported early Thursday that there had been nearly 500 crashes statewide since the storm began, including at least 45 involving injuries. An Arctic air mass is bringing widespread record-breaking cold to the central United States, and forecasters expected some locations to experience their coldest temperatures on record this late in the season. A total of 53 vehicles were involved in 12 crashes in the area. The driver of the tractor-trailer was charged with misdemeanor death by motor vehicle and exceeding a safe speed for conditions. The Highway Patrol responded to nearly 1,200 collisions statewide, according to State Christopher Knox. Crashes on Wednesday also closed the portions of Interstate 95 and 85 near Raleigh, North Carolina. Virginia State Police reported that there had been well over 800 crashes statewide since heavy snow pounded parts of the mid-Atlantic on Wednesday. At least 45 crashes involved injuries, but no fatalities.
The Central Bank of Egypt decided to keep unchanged the key interest rates. The central bank's Monetary Policy Committee decided in the meeting to keep the deposit rate, lending rate, and the rate of the main operation at 27.25%, 28.25%, and 27.75% respectively. The committee said that the decision reflects the recent developments on the local and the global levels regarding the decline in the inflation rates that led the central banks worldwide to hold steady the interest rates. The Central Agency for Public Mobilization and Statistics announced that the Egyptian exports to Saudi Arabia increased in 2014 to reach $3.4 billion, up 25.9% compared to a year earlier. Data released by the CAPMAS also showed that the trade exchange between Egypt and Saudi Arabia increased to reach $11.3 billion. The agency further said that Saudi investment in Egypt reached $775.5 billion over the past year. The cold weather is expected to prevail tomorrow during the daytime over Cairo, the northern coast, Upper Egypt and Sinai, turning very cold at night all over the country. Here's a look at the expected highs and lows in Cairo and the other governorates. And this brings us to the end of the news bulletin for today. Thank you for watching and goodbye.